The dead station drifted in silence, its skeletal frame glinting weakly against the dying star. Only fragments of light pierced the dust cloud, revealing the outlines of shattered antennae and torn hull plating. Inside the control chamber, Dr. Merektal adjusted the cracked console with steady but anxious hands. "Static again," he muttered, his scaled fingers brushing across the interface. "But the energy signature is core. This is their last message." Commander Lyra Voss leaned forward, her armored gloves resting on the console. She had seen ruins before, but there was something about this place, a suffocating weight pressing into her chest. "Can you clean it up?" she asked. Marek didn't answer immediately. The audio snapped and whined until a fractured voice pierced the silence. "Do not provoke them, do not strike the humans. They will hunt you, beyond time and reason." The voice dissolved into a metallic scream. Then silence. Lyra straightened, her dark eyes narrowing. The core had been dead for over 10,000 years, yet their warning carried the ring of truth. Something in her gut tightened. "When was this recorded?" Marek exhaled slowly. "On the eve of their extinction. I've studied dozens of core transmissions. This isn't myth, it's testimony." Before Lyra could reply, her wrist calm chimed. A cold, clipped voice filled the chamber. "Commander Voss, report to Atlas Command immediately. Priority red. New Carthage is under attack." The words sank like lead. Far across the galaxy, the Drakari War Council convened in the shadowed chamber of the flagship Tyrant Hose. Flames burned in ornate braziers, reflecting across scales and ceremonial armor. High Imperator Scarthal loomed at the head of the table, his jagged crest casting long shadows. His generals whispered uneasily, some with hesitation, others with bloodlust. A younger strategist rose. "High Imperator, the ruins warned us." "Superstition," Scarthal snapped, slamming a clawed hand onto the table. "The core were weak. They cloaked their cowardice in legends. We will not!" Another voice spoke, older, trembling. "The humans adapt too quickly. They learn. Their history is violence." Scarthal's eyes gleamed with contempt. "They are infants in space. They've seen a handful of wars. The Drakari Empire has ruled for millennia." He spread his arms wide, his voice thundering. "Today we remind them of their place." His decree was absolute: New Carthage will burn. Lyra's transport emerged from FTL above the colony hours later. The view punched the breath from her lungs. New Carthage was gone. The once thriving orbital ring lay in ruins, a halo of broken girders and drifting debris. Below, the planet's surface was scarred black, its cities glassed into lifeless plains. Fires still smoldered in the atmosphere, visible even from orbit. Her crew watched in silence. No one spoke, no one could. The communications officer's voice cracked. "No life signs on the main grid. Searching, wait, there's one AI beacon transmitting from the lower hemisphere." Lyra's jaw clenched. "Lock on. Bring it aboard." Minutes later, the scorched AI core sat on her command deck, flickering with weak blue light. With effort, the system replayed its last recorded broadcast. A Drakari officer stood triumphant against the backdrop of burning cities. "Let this be the fate of all who resist the Empire. The humans are fragile. Their colonies ash. Their people dust." The transmission ended with the execution of captured civilians. Lyra's crew looked to her, anger boiling in their eyes. She felt her own blood run cold, but she forced her voice steady. "Catalog every byte. Every image." Her gaze swept across her officers. "They want to show us as broken. Instead, they've written their death warrant." For a moment, silence. Then the eye sparked again, struggling to release a fragment of its data logs. A personal file appeared, her brother's name stamped across the screen. She read the final entry. "Commander, if you see this, I'll hold as long as I can. Don't let them win." The feed cut. Lyra closed her eyes, steadying herself. When she opened them again, they burned with a cold fire. On the bridge of the Tyrant Hose, Scarthal reveled in reports of destruction. His talons clicked across the console as he paced. The humans now understand the cost of arrogance. But already, whispers rippled through the ranks. A commander approached cautiously. Imperator, the survivors did not beg. They stared at us, as if memorizing our faces. Scarthal sneered. Fear makes them stare. Soon they will learn despair. Yet in his gut unease stirred. He shoved it aside, unwilling to give shape to the old legends. Back aboard her cruiser, Lyra stood before her officers. The glow of ruined New Carthage reflected on the glass walls behind her. They wanted to break us, she said quietly. Her voice carried weight, steady and deliberate. But humanity does not shatter. We sharpen. One of her lieutenants shifted uneasily. Commander, the Concord will urge restraint. They'll call for negotiations. Lyra's eyes locked on his. The Drakari left restraint burning on that planet. They wanted fear. We'll give them something else. Her hands curled into fists, and for the first time since the war began, she allowed her grief to harden into resolve. They will learn we don't forgive. And we never forget. The wreckage of New Carthage drifted behind her ship as it turned away. What the Drakari had unleashed was no longer simply a war. It was a hunt. Atlas Prime hung above Earth like a steel crown, an orbital fortress bristling with fleets, repair yards, and shimmering defense grids. Within its command dome, Commander Lyra Voss stepped into the strategy chamber, the war-scarred face of humanity reflected in the holomap before her. Red markers bled across it, each representing Drakari patrols, strongholds, and occupied colonies. Admiral Corin, a heavy-set man with graying hair, leaned forward. The Concord demands we respond with diplomacy. They believe escalation risks dragging the whole galaxy into war. Lyra's jaw tightened. Diplomacy didn't stop them from turning New Carthage into glass. You'd risk everything? A full-scale war with the Drakari Empire? Lyra didn't blink. I'm not proposing war. I'm proposing something worse for them. The room stilled. Her hand swept across the holomap, highlighting clusters of supply routes and listening posts. They struck us with fire and spectacle. We'll answer with silence. No grand battles, no declarations. We cut their veins in the dark. Let them feel hunted, everywhere at once. Corin frowned. You want ghost warfare. Her voice was iron. I want them afraid to close their eyes. Within days, her strike force formed, Ghost Wing. 20 ships refitted for stealth, their hulls wrapped in adaptive alloys, their weapons designed for quick decapitations rather than drawn-out fights. Among the crew were cybernetically enhanced Marines, infiltration specialists, and AI-guided drones built to vanish as soon as they struck. Lyra walked the hangar before launch, her boots echoing against the deck plates. Faces turned to her, men and women hardened by loss, united by fury. She saw her own grief mirrored there. You know why we're here, she began, her voice carrying without strain. They thought New Carthage would break us. They believed fear would silence us. They were wrong. We will remind them why humanity was never conquered. A murmur rippled across the ranks. Determination sharpened into something colder. Lyra's final words cut through the silence. We are not prey. We are the ghosts that haunt their every step. Far away, on the smoldering surface of the colony of Halros, Drakari patrols swept through forests under the twin moons. The ground still bore scars of bombardment, but scattered human resistance cells made the occupation costly. Tonight the patrol did not return. The next morning, Drakari scouts found them strung high in the trees, their armor carved with human words burned into the metal. We remember. Rumors spread like fire. Soldiers whispered of shadows moving without sound, of unseen hunters dragging warriors into the dark. By the third night, whole squads refused to leave their barracks. Scarthal, receiving these reports, bared his teeth in fury. Superstitions. Humans cannot do this. They lack the strength. But unease crawled beneath his words. Every Empire officer knew the truth. Fear spreads faster than orders. On board the stealth cruiser Nemesis, Lyra reviewed intercepted transmissions. Drakari chatter was fragmented, frantic. Entire outposts had gone silent. Supply lines vanished. Ships were found adrift, their crews gone, no distress calls sent. A communications officer turned to her. Commander, the psychological effect is working. Their soldiers hesitate before every deployment. Good, Lyra said. But hesitation isn't enough. I want terror. Her attention shifted to the prisoner confined in a containment cell, Professor Zale, a captured Virathi scholar who had once advised the Drakari. His skin shimmered faintly under the lights, his many eyes fixed on her. You studied us, Lyra said as she entered. Why did the Corps warn against striking humanity? Zale's voice was soft, trembling with something close to reverence. Because they learned what you truly are when cornered. The Corps thought themselves eternal. They tried to enslave your ancestors. But when you bled, something awoke. You became hunters unlike any they had faced. Lyra's gaze hardened. What exactly did they fear? He leaned closer, his many pupils contracting. You do not fight wars, you end them. You do not stop until your enemy is ash and memory. That is why the Concord warned the Drakari. That is why I begged them to listen. Lyra let the words sink into silence. Finally she spoke, voice low. Then they've chosen their extinction. The first strike of Ghostwing came without warning. A Drakari listening post orbiting the moon of Vathros powered down at midnight, its long-range sensors going dark. Within seconds the outpost's command bridge ruptured, its officers dead before alarms sounded. Human boarding teams swept through with surgical precision, leaving no survivors and erasing all data. By dawn, the entire station was gone, dragged into the moon's gravity well and shattered into dust. Not a single transmission had escaped. The next day, another report, a convoy of Drakari war freighters vanished. Only debris remained, drifting silent, hulls carved with a single phrase in the human tongue, "We don't forget." Panic spread through the ranks. Soldiers refused to man isolated stations. Some deserted, fleeing into neutral space. On the tyrant hose, Scarthal roared at his generals. They are flesh and blood. Mortals! Not demons! His claws tore into the command table. I will not hear another word of this phantom war. But even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed doubt. His empire had struck with overwhelming firepower. Yet humans answered not with armies, but with silence and precision, dismantling his war machine piece by piece. Lyra watched the fear bloom across intercepted channels, her hands clasped behind her back. Her second-in-command approached. Commander, their morale is collapsing. They see shadows where none exist. Good, Lyra said, her voice cold. Let them. She remembered her brother's final message. His face lingered in her mind, not as grief but as fuel. They thought we were fragile, she whispered to herself. Now they'll see what fragility becomes when sharpened into steel. Her orders cut through the bridge. Prepare the next strike. Make it clean. Make it merciless. The humans had begun their hunt. The Drakari Empire bled. Once proud fleets scattered, convoys vanished, and colonies whispered of phantoms moving through their skies. Entire divisions refused deployment, leaving fortresses hollow. The fear Lyra had seeded had taken root. On the bridge of the stealth cruiser Nemesis, the holomap glowed with fractured crimson markers. Lyra studied them with clinical calm. Around her, officers waited for orders. They're stretched thin, her second-in-command said. Command structures are collapsing. Lyra's eyes remained fixed on the glowing red clusters. Fear breaks armies faster than bullets. Now we cut the head. The operation's name was Echo Vale. Not a frontal assault. Not a war of attrition. This was the culmination of weeks of precision strikes. One final stroke meant to shatter the Drakari will. Their target, the heart of the Empire itself. The plan unfurled in silence. Ghostwing would slip through the scattered remnants of Drakari patrols, bypass their crippled networks, and descend on the capital world of Drakaros. Not to burn it, but to brand it with terror so deep it would echo for centuries. On the capital, Scarthal fumed within the high citadel. Hollow displays flickered with reports of lost fleets and silent stations. His generals argued, their voices rising with panic. They strike everywhere at once. How can we fight shadows? One demanded. They are only human. Scarthal thundered, though his words lacked conviction. His claws scraped against the stone table, sparks hissing in the air. We are the Empire. We. The chamber lights cut out. Every screen, every lantern, every source of power in the citadel flickered and died. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of panicked breath. When the lights returned, the central display pulsed with a single symbol, a human insignia. And a voice filled the chamber, calm, cold, unyielding. This war ends now. Above Dracaro's ghost wing materialized. 20 ships slid from the void, their black hulls reflecting starlight. They didn't open fire. Instead, they cast a web of electronic silence, plunging the capital into isolation. On the streets below, civilians stared skyward as the human fleet blotted out constellations. No explosions followed. No weapons fired. Just the oppressive stillness of hunters circling prey. Panic rippled through the Empire's greatest city. Soldiers shouted, citizens fled, and the myth of invincibility cracked under the weight of silence. In the citadel, Scarthal staggered to his throne. Show yourself! He roared at the projection. Face us with honor, if you dare! Lyra's image appeared on the central display, her expression carved from stone. Her voice cut through the hall like a blade. Honor? You slaughtered innocents who couldn't fight back. You burned worlds for spectacle. Now you see what humanity calls justice. One general tried to protest. You can't win against the Empire. Lyra's eyes shifted to him, unblinking. I already have. Around the chamber, advisors lowered their gazes. None dared speak. Scarthal's voice cracked with rage. If you destroy us, you'll doom yourselves. The Concord will turn on you. Lyra leaned closer to the feed. We don't need to destroy you. We just need you to remember. She gestured off-screen. Across the planet, every network, every broadcast, every screen lit up with her face. Her voice carried into homes, barracks, and markets. The Dracari Empire is broken. This war ends now. But hear me clearly, strike humanity again, and your name will vanish from memory. There will be no empire, no graves, not even ashes. Only silence. Her words lingered across the world. The silence that followed was heavier than any bombardment. In the citadel, Scarthal collapsed back into his throne. The fire was gone from his eyes. He saw it now, the inevitability. The Empire wasn't defeated by armies or fleets. It was undone by fear, by the certainty that humans would never stop once provoked. His final words were little more than a whisper. Mercy! Lyra's expression didn't change. Mercy died on New Carthage. The transmission ended. Ghostwing withdrew without firing a shot. No cities burned, no monuments fell. Yet the mark they left was deeper than flame. Every Dracari citizen had seen the human commander's eyes, had felt the weight of the promise. And they believed. Weeks later, the Dracari Empire surrendered. Its fleets limped home, its colonies abandoned. The Concord imposed sanctions, but behind closed doors, its leaders whispered of what they had seen, the raw, unrelenting nature of humanity. On every Dracari world, humans left behind their calling card, etched into walls, armor, and monuments. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Lyra stood on the observation deck of Atlas Prime as reports of capitulation poured in. Around her, officers celebrated, but her gaze remained fixed on the stars. She remembered the warning unearthed on the core station, the final desperate plea of a dead civilization. Do not provoke the humans. She understood now. The core hadn't feared humanity's weapons. They had feared the transformation, the way loss stripped them of restraint, how grief became precision, how vengeance became patience without end. A voice behind her broke her thoughts. Admiral Corinne. You've given us victory, Commander. But at what cost? Lyra didn't turn. The cost was written when they burned New Carthage. We only delivered the payment. Years later, children across the galaxy whispered tales of the night of silent skies, when human ships appeared above Dracaros and the Empire crumbled without a shot. In distant ruins, etched deep into stone, warnings multiplied. Alien historians carved them into monuments, hoping future empires would heed what the Dracari ignored.